Dr. David Bull's Sunday Surgery.
This is a really fascinating conversation because Wes Streeting is essentially saying I can cut waiting lists by involving AI. You can cut waiting lists by having wearables. You can have tech. Now, one of the problems to this is that actually a lot of the burden, or a significant amount of the burden of healthcare inequality, is with older people. As you get older, you tend to have a number of health issues. They're often connected. They may be unrelated. But also you've got a problem in that technology may be a solution in some parts of medicine, but also it does rely on the user being able to use some of that technology. So it's kind of chicken and egg. Joining me now, Mal Fletcher, who's a futurist. Good morning.
Good morning, David. Nice to be with you on, was it Whipped Cream Day?
Whipped Cream Day, that's right. Yes, it's a highlight of my year, let me tell you. Not very good for my coronary arteries. But let's talk about AI, because tomorrow, Wes Streeting is unveiling their plan to save the NHS. He's pinning this on AI pretty much. He's talking about wearables, he's talking about tech, the use of AI in diagnosis and targeted treatment plans and so on. There is a role.
Yeah, there is a role for AI. It's not going to solve a lot of the problems with the NHS because, as we heard from your previous caller, they happen to be largely political in nature and administrative in nature. And AI is a good servant. It's not a very good master, but it's a very good servant. It will do what we give it to do if we define clearly what we want. I think, though, that in terms of the technology itself, there are great opportunities for us to take in the next few years with things like implants. In the next couple of years, companies like Neuralink are going to be producing brain implants, for example, small as a grain of sand, based on nanotechnology, which is rapidly emerging now in the world of tech. And we'll start to see implants that are made from biodegradable material that actually dissolve in the body once they've served their purpose. So that's going to reduce the number and degree of invasive surgeries needed with things like chips, whether they're retinal chips, cochlear chips, brain chips. And of course, there's also great developments in spinal stimulators. And for people watching this, listening to this, who have chronic pain, this could be good news in the medium term, helping alleviate chronic pain with much more targeted ability than we have at the moment because of AI's capacity. So it's not going to solve all the problems, but as you say, there are opportunities.
And so just in terms of treatment modalities, the role also, and we're starting to see this a great deal, is sort of robots being used in operative techniques as well, and that enhances the skills of the surgeons.
Yes, indeed. In fact, it's important for us to say right here and now that AI can't replace the human being in areas like medical science, because human beings have an ability computers don't have, and that is the ability to empathize. So the therapeutic side of medicine will become more important, and I think should be probably more highlighted in the training of new medicos, because we are able to use imagination to interact with someone else, imagine what they're feeling, and respond in kind. And that's one thing that machines, by definition, cannot have, a shared human experience.
When I was training, we were taught that 90% of your diagnosis is in the history, i.e. you talk to the patient, you glean the information, and you put it into a sort of what is called Occam's razor. You put it into a funnel, and you work out what symptoms are important, and you come up with your working differential diagnosis. What I find fascinating is when you ask artificial intelligence to do that, it's not very good at that patient... well, it's absolutely rubbish at the patient communication thing, because there are lots of things that you rely on as a clinician. It's not necessarily just the answers, it's the way that people answer it, or the avoidance of eye gaze, or whatever it is. There is definitely something that human beings can do, which is to interpret those more subtle symptoms.
Yeah, that's true. That said, I think doctors and patients will benefit in the next few years from AI-driven biometrics. We already use facial, voice and gait recognition powered by AI. They're being developed for the police and security agencies. There are all sorts of ethical questions with that. But we're now seeing early developments with 3D facial recognition, and that could be much more detailed in the data it provides, and it could help to, and I put this in inverted commas, read emotions by doing exactly what you've said, more accurately tracking subtle facial muscular movements. So doctors could be assisted in gauging a patient's general health, particularly if we move more in the direction of digital surgeries. And as I say, we could end up with slightly more targeted treatment plans. But once again, it's important to say, as you said, that AI has limitations and it cannot replace humans in the loop when it comes to medicine.
And one of the big, I suppose, the frontiers of medicine is drug development. Getting new drugs is through the regulatory process from the inception and then into people's hands is a very long timeline, 20 years or thereabouts. One of the things that I think is fascinating is the repurposing of drugs, and I think AI plays a role, doesn't it?
Yes, it can do. I mean, AI, because of its capacity to read through swathes, oceans of data in very quick time, can help us, for example, to match up certain molecular combinations to find out which ones would provide the most likely solutions to specific problems. And in the short term, I think we're going to see great developments for that reason in areas like oncology and heart disease, where we already have huge amounts of data on the data banks. And AI models might also help improve with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in time, and it could be used to repurpose, as you say, existing drugs to help us deal with potential pandemics in years to come. And if you combine all of that with additive manufacturing, which most of us call 3D printing, we might find that it makes its way into pharmaceuticals in the same way that it's made its way now into prosthetics, so that in time we might even have automated pharmacies using AI to 3D print prescribed drugs on site, obviously with strict security protocols, but that could alleviate pressures on some of the struggling NHS systems.
Well, and you mentioned the struggling NHS systems there and capacity issues within the health service. Wes Streeting is also talking about creating virtual wards. So for a long time, they've talked about this panacea of remote monitoring. So the idea that you have wearable tech, so things that monitor whether it's your pulse, your blood glucose, whether it's your blood pressure or whatever it is. How near are we to making this a reality? Because I know tech firms have been chasing this for many, many years. It still hasn't quite reached its zenith.
No, it hasn't. And one of the issues we're going to face with implants and wearables, and implants are a big area for the UK in the next 2 years too, but one of the problems we're going to face is the question of, and it is an ethical question, a very human one, where do we draw the line between humanity and its tools? You know, the line's being blurred now as we invite tech into our bodies. We have to face the reality that the more we rely on implants or wearables, the more we make our bodies trackable and hackable devices. Any computerized device can, at least in theory, be hacked. So we have to answer these important ethical questions. And what concerns me, David, is that whilst we have talk fests between politicians and big tech leaders, we don't have any widespread debates calling on many professionals at once, say from the worlds of biology, the worlds of psychology, the worlds of philosophy, even theology, who have important things to contribute when the question is fundamentally, what does it mean to be human? So all of those questions will arise. It won't be just administrative problems that we're solving. We need to address those as well.
Finally, if I may, one of the biggest problems that has been kicked into the long grass, which is social care, and they're now not going to actually come up with a plan till 2028, which is far too late in my humble opinion. But just in terms of that, one of the biggest problems we have, an ageing population sitting at home, increasingly isolated. We know older people desperately need company to keep their grey matter active. Is there a role for technology here in terms of keeping people company? We spoke, I think, yesterday about AI robots that you can chat to someone or chat to a robot, and that helps you in terms of your social isolation.
Yes, well, countries like Japan have been developing for many years what are technically called soft bots. They're basically, soft robots. They respond in very sociable ways to actions. They read biometrics in a quite rudimentary way and respond in kind. And we have a picture on the screen of a less soft version of that. And so in Japan, just about 10 years ago, when this was just beginning to be developed, people in aged care homes that used the bots were asked the question, do you prefer the robot or the human carer? And something like 70% said we prefer the robot variety. And I suspect that was simply because there were more of them available. So we're certainly going to need humans in the loop there too, if only to, one, correct mistakes made by robots, but also to help that empathy level stay high. So I don't think we're going to replace people in old care facilities with soft bots anytime soon.
Oh, but how can you resist their eyes looking at you like that? Mal, really good to talk to you. Mal Fletcher there, futurist, about the role of technology in providing healthcare. And